Um, I'd venture to say that every single one of us got into the business because we want a great quality of life, right? And that manifests itself in a few different ways. More time, more money, more flexibility, and probably the biggest of all is more control, right? And if I said, what is the ideal situation for somebody? I might, or if somebody says, what does your ideal life look like? What I might say is I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, right? At any time. Well, how is that going to happen? Okay, the way that's going to happen isn't when I, number one, have the funds to do it, right? When I'm capitalized enough to do what I feel like doing at any time. And the only way that's going to have had to happen is if I think the way I need to think in order to earn that type of money, or have built that type of organization that I can step away from it or have it feed money to me, right? So everything that we're teaching is essentially about how do we improve either our time situation or our money situation, right? When I'm working with people at y'all's caliber, it generally boils down to two things. Let's say you were at a different company. And this would be a similar conversation that we would have if now, being that you're here. I say, Cynthia, what's more of a challenge for you right now? Time or money?
I would definitely say time.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Kathy? Same question.
Time. Money.
Okay.
Undecided.
Undecided. So let's go through one little illustration. So this is the kind of what we call the growth group, right? So these are people that are, I'm going to talk to this room like you guys are beyond how to put together an offer.
Okay.
Okay, I'm talking to people that are, you guys know how to present, you guys most likely know how to deal with objections, you are kind of a couple steps beyond a new agent. So we're going to talk about some big topics here in this room. Okay, here's one thing that you generally will all experience. And for the two of you who are relatively new to the business, I would venture to say let's say you're on this side. Kathy and Cynthia, you're probably more on this side. What I mean by that is this is the stage where you have more time than money. Okay? So like you suggested, I'm more concerned with money right now, right? Cynthia and Kathy, you just supported this a second ago. This is where you have more money than time. Make sense? So we start off in the business. We're usually not hugely capitalized, right? We might have a couple months expenses, or we may have a lot of money. But what we probably have more of is time. So you use your time to earn the money, right? And so then you go and you create all this business, all these opportunities, right? You're adding people to your database, you're making promises, you're executing on all your promises, you're going on appointments, you're delivering the value, you're delivering all the deliverables. I mean, you are working. And then one day you wake up and you're like, damn, I'm slammed. I got 4 people that I got to do this research for. I got to show homes to these 3 people. I got to pick this up, drop this off, research this, turn this in. And you're like, you've been there, have you not?
That's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
You're describing my life right now.
Okay.
I've
So,
shadowed Peggy, so I've seen.
so you've been there.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Right. She's there, you're all there, because you all are like right on the brink of this, which is when you use the excess money that you've earned and buy back some of your time. Make sense? So I felt like I won't stay on this too long, Kathy, because I think you just heard this, but this is just my personal story. I found in my business, as I was growing my business, I could make about $75,000 a year, relatively no stress. Every dollar I wanted to make beyond that, and I did want to make more than that, from about 75 to about 150 was at the expense of my personal life. After 150, I didn't have anything left in the tank. I was making good money, But I didn't really care what your pre-approval letter said, because I was going home and I was going to bed. I was gone, I was done. I had no energy left. Out. Okay? So I had a big decision to make. What was I going to do? Okay? So you have basically three choices. One is you retreat back to where it wasn't stressful anymore. Right? And then you have to ask yourself, can I have the life I want to have and earn this amount of money? I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying, when you've made 150, it's challenging sometimes to go back to 75. Right? So, but if you value your time more than money, that might be a strategic move. Right? Or you could essentially stay right where you are, which is the height of the stress. Every day it's 4 new things you gotta do, 3 new people you gotta see, 4 more research projects you gotta do. And that's what we've almost been trained to identify as a successful real estate agent, right? Somebody that's always on the go, right? Oh, I don't do anything on Saturdays and Sundays. Remember, I'm a realtor. I gotta do other stuff. I can't do personal stuff. I'm a real estate agent. I work every night, every weekend. I don't take vacations, right? And you're trying to like make me envious of you? I'm not envious of you. You got a shitty life. Excuse me. Right? You don't have a high quality of life, in my opinion. If that's what they want, that's fine. That's what they want. But I didn't get into the job for that. I didn't get into this role in that business, this business for that. I got into this role to have a nice balance between what I wanted to do when I was working and what I wanted to do when I was not working, right? And when I earned enough money to buy back some of my time, I did. The other option here is you can pay somebody to do some of the stuff that's gotta get done, which doesn't even have to be real estate related, by the way. Do you have obligations outside of your real estate business?
Yes.
Right. If you had the extra money to pay somebody to do some of those things, would life be easier?
Yes.
Okay. That's the goal, right? So think about this for a second. How much money are you worth? Right? I would venture to say that a well-structured, well-organized, professional real estate agent is probably worth about $200 to $300 an hour. Okay? Meaning, and let's just say a really bad one's worth $50 an hour. Should a real estate agent cut their grass? No. The only way a real estate agent should cut their grass is if they get some big, like, emotional fulfillment from it,
That's their exercise for the week.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, you have more time than money right
Yes.
now, so that's understandable.
But I would like to not have to cut the grass.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a business owner, my wife's a business owner, neither one of us wanna fold clothes. Guess what? We don't fold them. Okay, I'm perfectly happy to pluck the shirts right off the stack, my wife won't have that.
Oh, it's good.
So we hire somebody to come in and make the piles go away. And thank God we can,
I love that, I remember the first.
we can
time you were
afford
saying
that. I mean, it's not a lot, I mean, we pay somebody $25 a week for it, right? It might be a lot to some people, I don't know, but it's worth it for me, because number one, I'm not going to do it, okay?
Yeah.
But if I wanna live in my house with my wife, then I need to get it done. And she ain't gonna do it, cause it's a waste of her time, and she's worth more than that, and she doesn't get any fulfillment from it. So that is like 3 strikes, somebody else's job this is. And the kids are, my daughter's getting close, but she's not probably quite there yet. But soon, that's gonna be her job. She likes living at the house, she can be full of clothes. And we're gonna be learning concepts of leverage and team building and leadership from the get-go.
Or work equals money.
That's right. That's right. She's like, oh, I want this Braves hat. It's like, you do? She's like, yeah, I
Don't
want
put
it.
this many chores.
I was like, that's double your life savings. You know, your life savings is like $8. You've lost 8 teeth, that's $8. You ain't earned a nickel. That could have cost $16. Justify that for me. No, I'm not that bad, but
Close. You're like-
Right.
Yeah.
give me a dissertation. I need to know why that makes
Yeah,
sense,
yeah.
right? My point is that you always got to know what's more valuable, your time or your money, right? Now, the book, if you will tell you that somewhere in the neighborhood of around, let's call it 30 to 36 units a year is when you should be hiring out help. I was at about 20 to 25 units when I walked into the Ignite room and I said, who's the smartest person in here? Because I'm dying. Right? And Kathy Woods pointed me to Pam and said, Pam's the smartest person in the room.
There's more smart people here.
Well, you were the smartest person in that day, thank God. Right?
Yes, it's worked out
And,
great.
and remember, I said, come Pam, I'm gonna give you everything you want. And here's what I need from you. And we've had a great relationship ever since. Right?
Yep.
And why? Because I've gotten what I wanted out of the relationship and she's gotten what she wanted out of the relationship.
And we're honest with each other
That's
about
right.
what we want.
That's right. Simple as that. And I was willing to part with a portion of my profits before the book would have told me to do so, but I had an awareness about that and I was comfortable doing it. Primarily because I had other things outside of real estate that were driving my interest in spending that time doing that stuff. Interestingly enough, the very first time I had Pam show a property for me was the first day my daughter crawled.
You
I
would have
think- I
missed
don't-
that.
I would have missed that,
Yeah.
right? I'm just saying,
Yeah.
when you have to make a decision on what's most important, right? So, for example, I was listening to a podcast, it's actually a few years ago, but, we're taught to track all of our activities, right? So we know how much time we spent working, and of course we know how much we make,
Mhm.
right? So this guy's first year in real estate made $100,000, okay? And according to his math, he was worth $50 an hour, okay? So he had this realization that says, okay, well, if I'm worth $50 an hour, I don't mow the grass anymore, because I can pay somebody $35 an hour to do that, right? And I don't go grocery shopping anymore, because I can pay Publix to drop it off for me. Now, that's different than picking your kids up from school, for example, if you get some satisfaction from that, which I did, and that's why I did it. But something like folding the clothes or cutting the shrubs or whatever, not doing that stuff.
Well, for
Lord
me,
knows
it's
how
like-
long it's gonna take me to put together the chairs I just bought. I don't wanna do that. I need to find somebody else to do that. Right? If anyone wants to come in and put together my chairs for them, I'll teach them in the 20 minutes that takes, I'll teach you whatever you wanna know. That was a trick question, you should say, no, that's a shitty offer.
I love putting stuff together. I do.
All right,
Even without instructions, I do it. And that
so,
brings
do you have a thought?
satisfaction.
I know.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I wanna talk to you guys about is when I am kind of pondering what I want this program to look like, I don't think all of you have heard this, so I wanna read this to you really fast. I wrote kind of a mission statement for the group, okay? And what I said was, what I want to get rid of is this idea that, like, kind of we've had in the past with productivity coaching here. And the way I always kind of thought about it, and I think the way that the Market Center thought about it in large part, was it's for new people, right? It's for people that, need the basic skills knocked out, right? And I believe that productivity is really for anyone that's quite honestly just not where they want to be, right? They have a desire to be one place and they're not currently there. And they're willing to admit that there's a gap. And then they're willing to admit that if by chance they had an accountability partner or they had a coach, that the gap would get smaller, right? So I said our mission is to create a community of learning-based and purpose-driven leaders focused together on accelerating the trajectory of our businesses and the quality of our lives. Using the powerful leverage of Keller Williams models, systems, and technology, we intend to create abundant lives for ourselves and for those we support. That's sufficiently vague enough to apply to all kinds of people, right? Is that a group that you might like to be a
Yeah.
participant in?
I'm in.
All right. So, the things that I want to talk to you guys about, so whether you're brand new, whether you've done a bunch of deals or not, whether you're rich or poor or team or no team or whatever it is, I want you to feel like the value, it far exceeds the price you pay for it, okay? So, first off, that's gonna, my big ask of you is, make sure I'm clear with what you want and why, and how that may change over time, right? So if, and you gotta work, and you guys have been very patient, I'm appreciative of that. As we kind of work through some of the kinks in the program, is, you know, this is a new thing for all of us. So we're trying to figure out what do we need to deliver to all these people at a variety of different experience levels and a variety of different skill levels, so that everyone gets that same feeling, right? They walk in the door, they're poured into, they feel great, tons of value, leave, having been willing, happily trade their time for that, right? And when the first check comes and 10%'s gone, they say, is that all we charged, right? That's when it's gonna be a win-win for everybody, right? So I need to know, I've been in your shoes before, I have a pretty good idea of what the issues you're encountering are, but don't be bashful, tell me, right? If you think I'm focusing too much on you guys and not enough on the new agents, or vice versa, just pull me aside, I'm happy to take your feedback, okay? That's my big ask. My big, I just wanna take a moment to thank you for being willing to, this isn't probably the right word, but let's just say admit that having a coach and working with me in particular has a likelihood of improving the quality of your life, right?
Yeah.
So I applaud that and I appreciate your support. And as a result, I'm gonna be working all day and all night to make sure I pour back into you enough where you are happily stay in this experience for a long time. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, the content that I want to teach you guys is really about making that transition from what do you have more of, time or money, right? Because as you're earning more money, you're going to start to ask yourself, can I use some of this money to reclaim some of my time, right? Or how do I make sure that the money I'm making today continues to capitalize my business for the future? That I'm investing it properly, or that I'm always looking for opportunities, or I'm putting myself in the right rooms so that the right opportunities come to me, right? Who do I know that could help me get to where I want to be? Or who should I know, right? So, was anyone in the class yesterday about powerful questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things she said was, I might botch the delivery of this, but she said something to the effect of, if you have an issue, one of the questions that you could ask yourself is, who do you know that might be able to help you with this? Right? So what that actually means is, has anyone ever experienced this issue before? Right? And could I perhaps save some money or some time by just approaching them and seeing how they dealt with it? Right? I'll give you an example. Has anyone ever hired anybody before?
Not from my business.
There will be a short amount of time, hopefully, before you're in that position. And when you identify the need to be in that position, you got two choices. You can approach somebody that's done it before and learn from that. What do they do well? What do they not do well? Where do they spend their money wisely? Where do they spend their money poorly? What programs did they engage in? What learning and training did they attend? All that. Or you can do what realtors like to do, which is wing it. Right? What do you think is the better strategy?
Ask.
Right. So that's my point, is that sometimes as you get more and more money and more, I don't want to say celebrity, but you have more of a reputation for being a producer, right? Opportunities come to you, right? It could be anything. I mean, just from a personal perspective, opportunity came to me to be an investor in Keller Williams Israel, right? Opportunity came to me to step into the team leader role, right? So if I wasn't prepared from a capitalization standpoint, if I wasn't prepared from a experience and influence standpoint, if I didn't, have the passion for getting in front of a room and helping share what I've learned, and know the models and systems of KW, they definitely wouldn't have given me this gig or the last gig, right? So where did I want to be, and how was I constantly preparing myself for that, right? So I'll give you an example. I was at a young professionals, KW Young Professionals event like 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know if I qualify anymore.
I was gonna say, when you were young.
Right.
It's how you feel, Bill. It's not how.
That's definitely not gonna qualify me.
Oh, dang it.
I'm barely
Well,
new.
I feel like I'm 15, okay?
Yeah, nice try. That, I appreciate the support there, thank you. And they were talking about opportunity, right? And they said, well, how do you get opportunity, right? And they said, opportunity comes to people with two things, capital, right, and influence. And capital's like 1%, right? Because plenty, if you have got a really cool opportunity, there's no shortage of people that want to throw money at you. What they really need is a partner that's got influence, right? How do you evaluate influence in the Keller Williams world? What I was told is 2 questions, basically. What does your downline look like, right? How influential have you been in attracting people to Keller Williams, right? And what has been your involvement on the Agent Leadership Council? Because that's where there's a couple of thresholds, essentially, that you have to meet. Number 1, you're a producer, you're a top producer. Number 2, you're not going to be chosen if you're a dud or a non-cultural person, a person of no integrity, that kind of thing, right? So if I know you're on the ALC, I can pretty much assume a few things, right? So what's been your involvement there? Do you go to Red Day? Do you teach in the Market Center? Do you help new agents? Do you do things that you don't get paid to do? You see what I'm saying? That's the type of person I want to hang out with, right? So as you're looking for your next thing, right? Like as I build this real estate business and I'm growing and I might have new opportunities for agents or admin people or marketing people or whatever, and I might catch some attention or some people might start noticing me because I'm good at what I do, how am I going to be prepared for the next opportunity? And what is the next opportunity? You see what I'm saying? Like I'll give you just I don't think she'd mind if I said this, but Robin Lemon, for example, okay? She's got her kid and grandkids are in Nashville, right? That's where, at least the last time we spoke, that's her long-term plan, to be in Nashville, right? So, and she also has a passion for teaching. So if she's gonna find herself in Nashville in 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, why would they choose to get into, like, what role can she have there where she can have an impressive professional life and an impressive personal life, right? So perhaps she should get to know the people who own the market centers in that area and say, hey, I just want you to know who I am. Is there anything I can do to support you right now? Right? Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee at Mega Camp? I just want you to know who I am. I'm gonna be in your world soon. Right? Make sense? Okay. I also want to talk a little bit about wealth building. Okay. Next Friday we have a class on wealth building. I think it's from 2 to 3. And this upcoming Monday, I'm going to go, and I'm encouraging you guys to go. But from 11 to 2 at the Woodstock Market Center. 11 to 2 at the Woodstock Market Center is a gentleman named Aaron Kaufman, and he's teaching a class called the KW Effect. KW Effect is essentially a 3-hour course on the Keller Williams value proposition. And at the very end, there's some profit share content. And in the whole class, it is basically centered around the scripts and dialogues and conversation points around what makes KW unique. And that's one of the classes that I attended shortly after I met Aaron for the first time that really changed the way I thought about the opportunity of Keller Williams. Yep. Yep. Is anyone able to go to that? 11 to 12 on Monday.
I've got it on my calendar.
Beautiful. So I'm friendly with Aaron and I'm friendly with the TL there, and I've got permission to bring whoever I want. It's all free, okay? In that class, you're gonna learn, why is Keller Williams unique, right? What's the difference between the companies like the Coldwell Bankers, the Harry Normans, Century 21s, versus the Chapman Hall Virtual Property Palmer House, versus Keller Williams's, right? What are we doing differently and why are we doing it differently, right? That kind of stuff. Whatever you, Stephanie, if you're running a few minutes late and you can come to whatever you can, just come.
Okay, I'm supposed to go to, closing with Peggy at 1.
Okay, so there's, there'll be other opportunities, it's all up to you. No big deal. So one of the concepts that Erin talks a lot about is this idea of the cash flow quadrant. So I want to talk about that for just a second. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Cash flow quadrant?
I know I've heard it before, but I can't remember.
Okay. It's this idea here. This is so important, I'm going to take up an entire sheet of this paper. Okay, has anyone ever seen this?
Oh, yes.
Anyone ever seen that? Would you like to explain it?
No.
Okay.
Thanks, no.
Okay, anyone ever heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes.
Okay, it's written by a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. His other book, which is a lot longer and a lot less sexy, is called The Cash Flow Quadrant, which is 1,000 times better. This is the cash flow quadrant, okay? This is an employee. This is a self-employed. This is a business owner. And this is an investor. Okay, we're gonna spend a couple minutes on this, and then before we're done, I wanna take a little bit of feedback from you guys on what classes and content and that kind of stuff you feel to be most important. But I want the, I'm trying to cast the vision for you a little bit here, because quite frankly, I just don't think that we were put on this world to sling houses 24/7. Right? And once we use our real estate business to capitalize our life and to manage our time, then we can go spend our time and our money on whatever the hell we want. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So real estate is just a method of funding your perfect life. And that's, I'm talking directly to you guys, because if you're selling 11 homes or more, you're probably right on the cusp of that 100 grand or more. Many of us have been beyond that, right? That's not chump change. So what are we doing with that money that's creating a legacy or creating stability in our family or in making investments, getting out of debt, these kind of things, right? All right, employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. A good example of an employee, let's run this as a, let's say a plumber, okay? Joe's Plumbing. Joe's the owner. Here, I'll draw this. Joe's Plumbing. Joe owns the place, and Ryan is the worker bee. Okay? Ryan is an employee.
Mm-hmm.
When Ryan shows up to work, Ryan gets paid. When Ryan does not show up to work, Ryan does not get paid. Ryan is an employee and he trades his time for money. It's that simple. When he works, he gets paid. When he doesn't work, he does not get paid. Okay? He virtually has no financial freedom.
Yeah.
Make sense? When you are a employee, if you need to go, that's fine. I won't take offense, you already told me. When you're an employee, you've got to ask questions like, hey boss, my daughter's really sick at school, I gotta go grab her. Well, yeah, you have 12 3/4 off days, so that's gonna be a no. It's like, are you serious? Right? Those are the kind of conversations you gotta have when you're an employee, okay? Now, then you move to self-employed. That's what Joe was before he hired Ryan. He basically just owned a job, right? He still did all the work because there was no one else to do the work. But it was his shack, basically. Like, it was his truck, it was his tools, right? So he's got one truck and one set of tools. So when Joe's plumbing company, with Joe as the single employee / owner of the place, right? When he's working, he gets paid. And when he's not working, he does not get paid, right? How many toilets can the man fix it one time?
One.
That's right. And when he's out of town hanging out with his family, how many toilets can he fix?
Zero.
That's right. So he basically owns a job. He has no leverage, right? So there's not a whole lot different from these two, other than who gets to make the decisions, which, by the way, is no small biggies,
Right.
right? Then a business owner is another step. That's when Joe goes back and he hires Ryan. So when Joe's Plumbing charges $100 an hour to do plumbing repairs, right, Ryan gets to keep $60 and Joe gets to keep $40. Let's just say that's the split, if you will, right? So Joe can sit at home, receive the call, tell Ryan to go to work. Ryan's happy to do the work for $60 because he doesn't own the truck and he doesn't own the tools and he doesn't have the money for either one. And he doesn't have the acumen to run the business or the experience or the ability to generate leads or whatever it is. And so he will happily work for 60 and he will happily forward the phone call for 40. Make sense? So Joe gets sick and he sends Ryan out to do the plumbing job. Who gets paid?
They both.
Good answer, exactly. This is kind of like a team owner and a buyer's agent, right? Now, it appears like the buyer's agent is doing all the work, right? But they're basically just operating within the system that's been created and bankrolled and maintained by this guy, right? And it's a great relationship because what this guy has, this guy doesn't have, and vice versa.
Well, I mean, Joe created the opportunity for Ryan to even be able to do what he's doing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, so Joe, as the owner, has the ability to say, okay, now we got 2 sets of tools and 2 trucks. So now we can go fix 2 plumbing jobs, right? Or I'm just gonna sit at home and go on vacation while you do the work, right? So because he is now, this is basically, this is no leverage. This is essentially no leverage. This is leverage through people. And this is leverage through money. Okay? Now, this is being an investor. So this would be like, let's say you bought a share of Home Depot or something, okay? So let's say I make an investment in Home Depot, and let's just say I buy $1,000 worth of stock. And according to Home Depot's worth about a little over $200 a share, so let's just say I bought 4 shares of Home Depot. Okay, well, every quarter Home Depot pays a dividend. So because I own that stock, and I've temporarily, essentially given Home Depot a loan, if you will, Home Depot is gonna pay me back in interest, which is essentially just stock, right? So let's just assume I don't have that automated reinvestment plan and they just send me the cash. So they're gonna send me a buck or 2 for each share I own. So they're gonna send me a check for $10, let's say, every quarter, right? Did you work for that?
No.
Did your money work for that?
Yes.
Exactly. Did you have to deal with any, did you have to report to Home Depot?
No.
Did anyone call you when Home Depot had a dilemma on their hands? Did anyone call you when an employee was late or got sick or complained about something or whatever? Okay, great. So you're an investor. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, there's active investing and there's passive investing. What I just described would be passive investing. What's a good example of active investing?
Owning real
Flipping.
homes.
Yeah. Flipping, no, not necessarily. Parts of flipping.
Okay.
What did you suggest?
I
That's just,
said owning rental homes.
yeah, I would say that's a little bit more in line,
Okay.
right? Because there's still a job,
Yeah.
right? There's still an active set of things that gotta get done, right? You gotta screen the client, you gotta fill in the move-in, move-out report, you gotta collect rent, you gotta receive the phone calls when something's broken, you gotta arrange for 3 estimates, blah, 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 right? So you buy a home, you need to find a renter for it. Now, guess what? You've created a job. Let's say the rent's $1,000 a month, normal company's gonna charge you 10%. that job pays $100 a month. Stephanie, do you want that job? Let me describe it to you first, okay? You're available 24/7 for anything the tenant needs. Anytime something's broken, I need you to go find the appropriate vendor and get 3 quotes. If you have a hard time collecting the rent, that's your problem. And you're in charge of finding the tenant.
No,
That job pays $100 a month. Are you interested?
No.
Okay, so then you should never self-manage any rental property because you have determined that you would rather have the time than the money. Does that make sense? If you were to say, well, I'm already underwater on my payments, so, or I'm not getting enough in rent, and so I'm gonna put up with all the headache. Great. So you have equated the tasks. You'd rather do the task than save the money. I'm sorry. You'd rather do the task than spend the money. Follow that? So everything is a judgment. Would I rather do it or pay somebody else to do it? Now, if you can't afford it, it's a very easy job or a very easy decision.
Or you have really good tenants.
It depends.
Yeah.
People are really good until they're not really good, right? Anyone who's gone through a divorce knows that, right? Husband's great until he's not great.
Oh.
Wife's great until they're not great. Yeah, this ain't working, we gotta go. Right?
It's not wood, but it looks like it.
What's that?
Say it's not wood, but it looks like it. I was like, hopefully I don't go through that.
Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you don't. So, now, because it's active investing, you're gonna get the call unless you paid somebody else to receive that call as to say the HVAC is not working properly, right? So that is some leverage, but not complete leverage. Now, let me tell you something cool about this idea. If we make a big divide between these two sides, 95% of the world's people earn money through this side, the quadrant. 5% of the world make their money on this side of the quadrant. Okay? 5% of the world's wealth is held on this side of the quadrant by the people who occupy this side of the quadrant. And 95% of the world's wealth is owned by 5% of the people that occupy this side of the quadrant. So, this is an intelligence test. Which side would you prefer to be on?
All right.
Right. So, what are you doing in order to get there? Right? Are you affecting how are you spending your time? How are you spending your money? What are you learning? Are you becoming a leader? Right? Because guess what? When you're here, you might be a really good plumber, but if you suck at being a manager, no one's gonna wanna work for you. Right? Or you're not a leader, then you're not gonna get a talented person, right? So, let's say I'm a B- leader. My team is full of C's and less, right? Because they're the only people that are gonna look up to me. If by chance I happen to post an ad somewhere and an A-quality person comes to me, they're gonna sit down with me for 5 minutes and be like, you're a B- leader, peace out. Can't work for you.
Yeah. Or
Right.
they might end up working, but they'll leave right away.
Same difference, right? So maybe it takes a minute, for the glow period to work off.
Interview well.
Right, exactly, right? So if an A person comes into my world, they're not gonna stay long. Now, if I'm an A+ leader, then I get to have A's, I've earned the right to have A's on my team, right? Would you rather have a team full of A's or a team full of C's? So what are you doing to become the best leader possible? Right? So are you time blocking? How much of a priority is education, getting coaching? How much of a priority is reading or going to seminars or studying or watching videos or whatever it is that's going to continually make you into a better performer at whatever you've decided to perform? Right? I'll give you an example. Was anyone in the class yesterday, the Powerful Questions class?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there was, she asked a question of the group. She said, so how many people in the last month have been in a class about real estate? Right? And pretty much everyone raised their hand because they're sitting in the class. So how many people in the room have been in a class on parenting or marriage in the last month? And hardly anyone raised their hand, right? Yet we spend 8 hours on our business and the other time theoretically we're with our families, right? So you're telling me that business is yeah. So what are you learning? Like, they say, like, I'll be able to tell your priorities simply by following you around all day or looking at your calendar, right? If I see you fiddling around with Facebook all day instead of learning or getting smarter or practicing something, then that's what I think is important to you. And guess what? I'm right, because I just saw the evidence, right? So does your calendar convict you? So what are you doing with all of the opportunities that you have to get on this side, right? So it's almost like every opportunity that comes my way, my first question is, do I have a competitive advantage in this arena, right? Do I have some type of skill or relationship that's gonna help me be better at this than other people would have? If the answer is yes, then I say, okay, cool, check first. First check. Now, is this something that I'm gonna have to do a lot of work on, or is this somebody else can do a lot of work on, right? So I'm basically trying to figure out, like, is this the right opportunity for me, right? Do I have a competitive advantage? Do I have the capital to pull it off? Do I have the time to pull it off? And by the way, does it interest me, right? So if it's check, 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 then I'm like, this is pretty cool, right? But if I have no interest in it, right, and I don't really like the people's, ethics, or it's in an area that I'm unfamiliar in, or I don't want to work in, or something like that, it would require me to move somewhere, then it's a no-go, right? Or if I don't have the money, right? So is there somebody else that can do some of the work, right? Can I become the Joe? Can I collect 10 and give somebody else 6 and everyone's happy? Is there a way for that to happen, right? So that's how to get over here. So, by the way, profit share is right here. Has anyone in this room ever received a profit share check?
Yes.
Is that not the coolest thing
Yes.
ever?
Yes.
Like, in all honesty, is there ever been anything else cooler than that? Like, I'm not talking about like the birth of your kids, but from a financial standpoint,
I could think of something.
from a financial standpoint, has there ever been anything else cooler than just money appearing?
I didn't even know. My husband's like, what is this that got deposited? It was like almost $500. So I was like, I'm not sure. And then like I looked into it, I was like, oh, it was the 21st. Like, oh yeah, it's profit share. And it was.
Guys, do you know what, I forget which company it was, I think it was Fidelity. A number of years ago, they had that commercial where people are carrying around a number. You remember what I'm talking about? So that idea was, basically how much money do I have to have or have invested somewhere where I can live off of the yield, right? So most financial planners will tell you somewhere in the neighborhood of around 3% withdrawal rate. Okay, what that means is that, let's say I have $1 million in the bank or in some investable asset, then I can pull 3% off of this money and have a $30,000 passive income annually while maintaining this balance, okay? No judgment. In retirement, would you like to have more than $30,000 a year?
Yes.
I was hoping that would be the answer. Okay, so you're gonna need more than that. Make sense? Unless you have some other type of investment that is yielding some of that money, right? So, this is just an illustration, I'm just sharing my story. Between Rachel and I, my wife and I, last year we made $70,000 in profit share. Okay, that's like 2 normal jobs. Okay, so let's just play with some numbers really fast, and this will just show you the power of this. That's the equivalent, according to my example here, of having about $2.5 million in the bank. Does everyone see that? Okay, So that's money that I didn't have to earn and I didn't have to pay taxes on. Okay? So in order for me to have 2.5 million in the bank, that'll yield me 70 grand. Okay? I had to save it, right? Well, the only way I was gonna save it was I had to earn it first. So what do you think is a typical saving rate?
Far too low in the US.
10%?
I mean, they recommend 15 for, have enough for retirement.
Let's keep the math simple and call it 10%.
Yeah.
Okay, which means I needed to make $25 million in order to save 2.5. Is that fair math? Well, guess what we forgot? Taxes, right? So actually, I had to make 50 million in order to have that after taxes, in order to save that, in order for it to yield the 70 grand. Make sense? The big takeaway here, guys, is you're not gonna save your way to wealth. Simple as that, unless you're A-Rod or something, right? Because the average person's not gonna work a 50-year career in the first place. So you're gonna have to make, from the time you're, let's say, 22 to the time you're 70, actually that is 50 years, but you're gonna have to make over $1 million a year. I think we're all behind, right?
Just a little.
Right. So you're not gonna save your way to wealth. Okay, but profit share is an opportunity that is often overlooked in this company. And part of the mission of being in the room, in the productivity room, is improving the quality of your life. And there's two major things that we need to focus on. One is money, and the other is time, right? So how are we dissecting your money and making it more efficient and more fruitful and more, how are we investing that money so that you have more financial opportunity, right? And we're gonna dissect your time to make sure that every minute you're spending is purposeful, right? Because no matter what you told me your goal was, it's possible. It's just gonna take a different plan and a different system, and as long as you have an accountability partner and a coach and you know what you're supposed to do, you will get it done, right? And by the way, you might need some help and all that stuff. Make sense? Bless you. So with that said, the goal is everything that you ought to be thinking about right now is, are there any systems and tools? So this is this new idea Keller Williams has got. It's not a new idea, but it's kind of a new delivery of the idea. Is in order to create more efficiencies, you should first be looking for 1, systems, 2, tech, 3, people. So anytime you have a challenge, you should first say to yourself, is there a system that, if implemented, would make this challenge smaller or go away, right? So for example, my challenge, let's say, is following up with all the buyers that are in my pipeline, okay? Do you think a system would help with that? I do too. System would be like, okay, what do we do first? We go visit a lender, then we write them a card, then we call them here, then we text them here, then we set them up on this campaign, blah, 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 right? If you don't have a system in place that's executed on repetitively, then what ends up happening is all the people that you're servicing, there's balls dropped and nothing is the same and the experience is not uniform. It becomes uniform when you have a system. Then you say to yourself, cool, that seems like a good system. Is it possible that technology, by using technology, this system could be automated or made easier, right? And that's things like, in the real estate space, smart plans, neighborhood updates, auto texters, these kind of things, right? And then the next thing is who is the person that is going to set up the systems in the tech or execute the systems in the tech, right? Is it me or is it somebody different, right? And if it happens to be somebody different, who's paying for it, right? And do I have and what expertise do they need and what expertise do I need? Make sense? We're also gonna talk a lot about the models, right? The economic model, the lead generation model, the budget model, and the organizational model. At this level, we are all getting there, or I would say it's almost all of our intentions to get to the point where we are here trying to figure out what we want our days to look like and how much stress we want to encounter. Right? How much stress are you willing to put up for the money that happens to be in the bank? Right? What's that balance? Right? And so the question is what is work? Right? So then you have to know the economic model, for example, like how many people do I have to talk to each day, or how many appointments do I have to set each week, or whatever it is, in order to hit my financial goals, right? And therefore I'll know what work really is, right? So I'll end with that thought. And then who's gonna do all the work, and who's gonna bankroll this whole thing, and where all these leads gonna come from? Those are essentially the models, right? What is work, meaning like how many contacts or appointments or that kind of thing. Then where are they all gonna come from? That's all this list of open houses, cold calling, door knocking, prospecting, buying leads, whatever. Where are they gonna come from? And then the question is, how are we gonna pay for all this, right? Are we paying the appropriate amount of money on technology, on food and entertainment, on travel, on coaching, on signs and marketing, these kind of things, right? Is everything in check ratio-wise with best practices? And then lastly, who's doing all this work, right? We had this, we drew this earlier that said, Heather's the CEO of her team, or of her organization. There's 3 major departments of a real estate organization. This is lead generation, this is operations, and this is sales. Lead generation would be basically, this is super oversimplifying it, but everything that happens prior to the lead going under contract. This is everything that happens afterwards. And this is who does the work. So like this is where an ISA would be, this is where a contract to close person would be, this is where a listing or buyer's agent would be. Well, guess what? Heather's a solo agent. So she's working in the business a lot, but she's also the owner of the place, which is quite stressful. Now, by the way, it's only stressful if you're making money and you've got tasks to do, right? But you've also got to understand how do you spend your time, and are there any jobs here that are not the most, the best use of your time? Does that make sense? And so what we need to then do is say, are there any jobs here that I should be assigning to somebody else? And say, I no longer show property, right? I don't care what it costs me to not show property anymore, I'm not doing it. I don't enjoy it. I don't want to make small talk with the buyers, I just don't get any fulfillment from it, and I'm more than happy to offer this opportunity to somebody else. And when they hear the opportunity, they're like, this is awesome. Well, what a match made in heaven. Make sense? I don't want to make any flyers anymore. I don't have the passion for it, I don't have the eye for it, I don't have the tech for it, I don't have the software for it, and I definitely don't have the patience for it. Will somebody please make me a flyer? I will overpay for it, right? I promise. I don't want to do it. Somebody want to do it? I'll pay you good money for it, right? So the question is really understanding the components of the business so you can cast the right vision, attract the right people to help, right? And the key to it all is trying to find that blend between time and money. Now, one last point I want to make about this, the economic model, is it shows you what work is. So what I mean by that is, let's say that you've determined that work is having 14 conversations with prospects every day. And let's say work is adding 3 people to your database every day, right? And work is going on 1 appointment a week. Let's just say that's reasonable. That's not crazy talk, right?
No.
Okay. So if I do that all the time, every day, according to my goal, let's say I work 250 days a year or something, okay? If I do that, then according to my forecast and modeling and all that, I will make the amount of money I want to make, okay? So if you do that, Cynthia, you will be on task. You will be on target, right? So as long as you sell the roughly the price range you were thinking about selling and have the conversion ratios you're expecting and all that, you'll hit your financial goals. Now, if you don't do that, You won't. Safe to say?
Mhm.
Okay. For a long time, my problem was I didn't even know what work was. Right? Before I came to Keller Williams, no one even showed me what that even meant. Like I never had an economic model. I never knew how many appointments I was supposed to set. Quite honestly, I never knew whether I was on track or not. Right? And even if somebody had said, what are your goals? They would have been too low because they weren't making me think the way I needed to think to have the life I wanted to have. Right? And so what ended up happening is every time I was at work, I was exhausted and upset that I wasn't at home. And every time I was at home, I was exhausted and upset that I wasn't working. Well, that's a crappy way to live, right? So I had to figure out what work was, right? So I could do it and put that aside and be okay with going to do things outside of being a real estate agent. Make sense?
Mhm.
And I think we're all pretty much in that neighborhood right now where we have children or spouses or hobbies or whatever it is. You know, we have things that demand our attention outside of being a real estate agent. And what we really want is we want to be able to, when we're working as a real estate agent, we're all in, totally focused, like super efficient. And when we're all out, we're really efficient all out, right? No phones on the vacation. I know that's a lot to ask, but like that should be the goal, right? It's truly a vacation. Like there's agents that like bring their printer on vacation. Like, are you serious?
I didn't take mine, but they have my computer.
Look, I'm not perfect either. My wife will tell you that 100 times. But it's always thinking about how do I create efficiencies with my time? How do I create efficiencies with my people? And how do I create efficiencies with my resources? And how do I create efficiencies through technology and through my systems, etc. That make sense? So those are some of the concepts that I want to cover on with this group, right? Is obviously, what are your biggest challenges? What are the challenges of the day, right? What are you doing well? What can you share with others? But what we really want is you've proven that you can create more business than what naturally fell into your lap when you told the world you're a real estate agent, right? So you've got a database full of people that like and trust you. Now we just need to, 10x that, right? And while we're doing that, we need to pay super, super close attention to our outside of real estate life so we can not infringe on the boundaries that we were seeking when we decided being a real estate agent would be a good idea, right? Because the worst thing that could happen is you get involved in real estate because you want a better life, and then you can't control your time or your goals or your daily activities, and then you end up having a stressful, unproductive, unfulfilling career. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Any thoughts, questions? Is there anything you are dying to know about that you don't know about? Anything? What's your biggest challenge? We'll end with this. What's your biggest challenge in real estate today?
Mine's a technology of just trying to figure out the system.
Okay. What I would say to that is technology is something I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I don't think that me teaching you how to operate command is probably the best use of our time.
Sure.
I think that there's a lot of resources for that. We've got other classes for that, free, all this stuff. Where if you say, hey, I have a problem with command, I don't understand it the way I should, I'm probably using it to its minimum abilities. So as a result, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes a day learning about command, right? And I'm gonna watch a video on something I'm unfamiliar about, opportunities, designs, whatever it may be. I'm gonna spend 10 minutes, start trying to break it or fiddle around with it or whatever, right? Or I'm gonna schedule an appointment with Leanza once a month to see what I'm missing, right? Or I'm gonna watch a what's new in command video every week, right? So the goal is to be as resourceful as possible with the resources that are being created for us, right? There's Facebook groups, there's all kinds of stuff. Sam's command website or YouTube page And I'm learning it too, quite frankly.
Marty Miller's.
Marty Miller
If you
does,
go with Marty
Yeah.
Miller, M-A-R-T-Y, Miller on YouTube, and,
I watched some
Jay
Sands.
Cermak.
yeah.
I think it's just so many things that I'm like, it just feels like I don't have a grasp on it yet.
If you look, there's a guy, if you Google, Scott Leroy,
Scott Leroy,
I think it's L-A-R-O-W, or I'm sorry, R-O-Y,
okay.
Leroy. It's kind of like Michael Lewis, it's like his competitor.
Oh, okay.
And he does like a command overview, it's usually about an hour long, and I think he publishes it about once a week. So that's a good overview on like what stuff command can do,
Okay.
right? And then you can say, ooh, opportunities. You just Google, what's new in opportunities, and you'll see a slew of videos. So, you wanna find the blend between learning the tech and generating business.
Mhm.
Because what sometimes can be very attractive is becoming a professional student,
Uh-huh.
right? And then what might end up happening is you'll be the expert on a piece of real estate software for a company you can no longer afford to be a part of.
Sure.
The good news is if that was to ever happen, then you could start a real estate business or a tech business teaching realtors
That won't be me.
technology, right?
It's
Because
just a
there's-
general, like, I just
Yeah.
need to, I think it's just so many multiple things thrown, and it's just a busy, like, I don't have as much time as I wish I had to do this, so I'm kinda limited because
Yeah.
I work another job still, so that's, a challenge for me.
I
Well,
think
Marty
your biggest,
Miller- Marty Miller Command 3.0. Don't worry about the 2.0 and 1.0.
yeah, exactly.
3.0?
Yeah, 3.0, because as Command has evolved and improved, he has redone
Okay.
things,
Thank you, Pam.
and I mean, they run like 10 minutes maybe,
Okay,
and he walks you right through how to do things.
okay.
Okay, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If we can do, there are a couple of things that are exclusive to PC people. A WhatsApp group, Facebook group, Google Drive, Ramp Up, and YouTube. If you are not a part of those, please let me know right away, and I will get you invited to them. We just need to do paperwork, and then I'll get you all the stuff. Again, thank you for exchanging your time for what you've gotten here. I hope that this will be the first of many times that we can do this, and there's nothing more important than helping you get to where you want to be. To be put very simply, from a leadership perspective, my job is quite simple. What do you want? Why do you want it? Here's the plan. Like, can I hold you accountable? And then you'll get it, and you'll be happy, and I'll be happy, right? And as you are learning, and you're out there in the field, having successes and having failures, please communicate to me what you need from me, so that I'm the best partner. Make sense? All right, thanks.